guess being a superhero is fun and cool until you reach that moment when you realize that even superheroes are not exempted from the struggles of having and dealing with their mental health, or in some cases, mental illnesses. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it was great how they incorporated such intriguing topics to their characters, making their superheroes even more relatable and interesting. It's pleasing to see that our most beloved superheroes are very much like us in terms of having to deal with depression, anxieties, and several other mental disorders, except that we do not have such cool and amazing powers just like them. Here, we will discuss one of the most talked about and most intriguing Avenger, Wanda Maximoff, popularly known as Scarlet Witch. We'll talk about her mental state, what caused her mental health to deteriorate, and what were the consequences of her psychotic break. If you're an avid fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, both in the movies and in the comics, then you probably know a lot about Scarlet Witch's childhood trauma. There were different versions as we know it, but it all came down to one result, and it was the fact that Scarlet Witch ended up with mental instability. Let us go over her childhood first and some of the versions available, so we can better understand her mental state. Scarlet Witch and her brother Quicksilver had to endure a lot during their childhood. In one of the many versions, they were the children of Miss America and Wizard, both considered as Golden Age heroes. Unfortunately though, Miss America died during childbirth, which caused Wizard to be traumatized, so he ended up leaving his children. They were adopted later on by a Romani couple, but they lived in poverty, and so a series of unfortunate events happened. To make the long story short, the two ended up being orphans again and wandered through the snow, until the time came when they met Magneto and joined his Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. In another version, they were the children of Magneto and his wife who froze to death after trying to escape from Magneto, while in another version, they were kidnapped at birth and were experimented on. So, you see, whichever version you choose, it still leads to a traumatic childhood. Whether they were abandoned or adopted or kidnapped, the fact that in all versions they lost their parents who were supposed to be their primary caregivers. They were raised in poverty, struggling to survive the cold and starvation. There was no wonder why Scarlet Witch became mentally unstable. Her brother, Quicksilver, became cold, demanding, and dominant in the process, which may explain why Scarlet Witch ended up with Vision. While her brother and her two fathers in both versions, Wizard and Magneto, were not able to support her emotional needs due to their brash personality, Vision, a synthesoid, was able to provide the stability she was hoping for. Unfortunately though, her happiness didn't last long, because she also lost Vision for various reasons, depending on which version you're in. Honestly, it's a lot to take in. Scarlet Witch had a lot going on since her childhood, and she didn't even have the chance to heal from all of these stress and traumas, which later on caused her to have a psychotic break. Now, what is psychotic break, and what did it do to Scarlet Witch? Basically, a psychotic break denotes the early onset of psychotic symptoms, or the abrupt onset of psychotic symptoms after a period of remission. These symptoms include delusions and hallucinations. Therefore, we can say that psychosis is a condition where the person has lost contact with reality. Although a psychotic break may be a result of a psychotic disorder, it can also be related to other disorders such as depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and more. In Avengers Disassembled, Scarlet Witch's mental state took a turn for the worst, as it resulted to the deaths of some of the Avengers when her psychotic break subconsciously caused her to arrange an attack on the Avengers headquarters. When they found her in an empty house where she was having dinner with a family that she created in her own head, there was no doubt that Scarlet Witch had already been consumed by her mental illness. Truth be told, Scarlet Witch's story is quite hard to take, considering the fact that what she has gone through can be experienced by a real person, without superpowers involved, of course. It's a true manifestation of what childhood traumas can do with our mental well-being, as well as the possible consequences of not being able to heal from these traumas. So, if you experienced trauma from the past, or if you know someone who did, get the necessary help in order for you or the person you know to recover and become better. Always remember that there is nothing wrong with seeking help, especially if you are in need of professional advice. Your mental well-being matters, and it is not something you should take for granted. Check out one of our newest videos here. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss out on more videos about your favorite Disney and Marvel characters and the psychology behind them. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.